Hello, everybody. Anna Sabramowicz here. Hope you're doing fantastic today. It is Tuesday, March the 19th. Thank you so much for joining me. If this is your first time, welcome. Let me indoctrinate you into scenarios because that's exactly what I talk about here and how to use them, how to craft them, how to design your own. Now, if you go to designingeLearningscenarios.com, then what you'll see there is a framework and a video of how I use scenarios to basically deliver all kinds of different kinds of solutions. And now what I'm able to do is actually help other people just like me, instructional designers, strategists, e-learning developers, develop the same kind of awesomeness for their clients. Because really that's my goal, is to get as many people as possible tuned up and really good at designing scenarios for their own purposes. Right. So what's really awesome is that we just kicked off the scenario design cohort this morning. And one of the questions that came up in there, I thought, this is totally awesome. That's why I love working with students, because they'll find things that while they're implementing, that they're coming up against. And one of the questions was solid. It came from John. Thank you so much, John. And one of the challenges that he realized very quickly is he has an audience, or his stakeholders have a lot of content that's already been developed that's quite, let's say, important for them to share. So he said, where the heck, when you're designing your scenarios, where do you put that stuff so it's meaningful, right? So it actually isn't too boring for the learner, and also it satisfies that requirement that there's somebody, it's placed in front of somebody's eyes, right? How do you do that? And so I thought that was an actually awesome question, because I myself have come up against that. And the module that I was working on had basically was the legal department was trying to share all of its like the subsections of its of the privacy policy that the employees had signed. And so what they wanted to do is they wanted to basically get that in front of everybody, but nobody would actually read it, right? Even if you, regardless of how accessible you made that document, nobody's going to read that, because there's people who go to school to read those documents. And also people who are actually interested in that are usually at the point of something bad has happened. So how do you get people to look at something that's quite boring and very in the foreign language, really legalese, right? How do you get them to look at that and actually understand it in the context of their own lives? So basically what happened is the scenario was set up to give a situation where that particular piece of content, or that particular piece of that legislation, or the clauses and all those things would be relevant, but it wasn't shared with them beforehand. What happened is you had the situation, right? So here's what happens. And this person, let's say, makes a call on something that is supposed to happen. So then, after that situation is shared with them, they're presented with a couple of decisions, right? Hi, Shauna. Nice to see you. After somebody is given the opportunity to make these decisions, they experience the consequences of what they've actually decided to do, which is wonderful, because what happens is a lot of people misunderstand, let's say, the ethics code at their company, or they misunderstand what it means to have a privacy clause, what it means to have non-disclosure agreements. They don't understand how that affects their decisions every day. So this is an awesome way to actually bring to life situations that they would actually experience in their life that would actually help them contextualize this. So now that they get that something's going on and there's actually some protocols to follow, that's when you magically sneak in that specific, let's say, excerpt from the ethics code, or the non-disclosure agreement that they signed when they first joined, but now they don't remember actually ever signing it because it was such a big rush, right? But what's cool is you add that at the very end, and a lot of times the feedback parts, those are the teaching parts for your scenarios. But what's really cool is that what you can do is in that teaching part, really what you're doing is you're sharing more information. So you can actually put those pieces in there. And what's cool as well is that because you added it to the end after somebody's had an opportunity to kind of think about where they would use, what kind of decisions they would make, and would this happen to me, then what happens is now all of a sudden that information is actually important. Now it actually is relevant to them. If you place this in the very beginning, you said, here, read this whole document, and now we're going to put you in situations. The challenge is that when I read this at the very beginning, I have no idea when I'm going to use it, and I have nothing to really attach it to. That's one of the things that you're actually doing with scenarios, which people don't really, it's kind of a sneaky thing. When you share information with somebody that's kind of abstract, or they've never been in a situation like that before, or they've never encountered that kind of info before, like maybe the people that are joining your organization have never signed a non-disclosure agreement and they have no clue what you're talking about, right? They just signed it because they had to. And so what happens is if you're trying to get them to, maybe if you put this information at the very beginning over here, they've never been in a situation where they've needed to connect that information to. So there's no scaffold in their brain that they can go, this info, I'll attach it here. Because that's how we process and remember information, right? That's why stories are so important. That's why scenarios are so important. Because what we're doing is we're setting up a situation with a human in context of what they're doing at their workplace. And then they can actually take that abstract legalese doc, and now they can attach it to something that's real and attach it to something that's familiar to them and put it kind of in the scaffold of how they process information. So all you're doing is, as much as possible, is creating these connections and easy ways, easy shelves for somebody to store information and then at a later date be able to actually recall it because it makes sense and it connects to something they already know. So yes, I hope that was helpful. I hope this makes sense. A lot of times people say they want to front load because somebody, if they don't know all the info, how are they going to make a decision? It's totally fine. This is a safe place. Have them be in a situation that they may not necessarily know how to solve. Go through that situation, experience the consequences, figure out if they were right or wrong, and then give them feedback and say, hey, you know what? You might find this helpful because this is really going to save your butt the next time you're doing something that maybe you shouldn't be doing because you signed that clause, remember? So now, if this is something you want to get awesome at, go to scenariodesignsecrets.com, and there you'll see a video that I've put together on my scenario framework. And also at the end of that video, you can also sign up for a strategy session with me. Now, during the strategy session, I basically figure out where you're needing some help, where your process breaks or where you're experiencing difficulty. And if it's a good fit, then I offer you to work with me. And right now we are running this cohort right now, so we'd have to figure out when the next time slot would be for us to work together. So jump on the call, figure out what's going on, take your learning to the next level. Your scenario skill set, just watching videos is not going to get good. What you want to do is actually have somebody there to coach you, give you feedback on your specific project, and you do that while you apply. And that's the best way to learn. That's the best way I learned. So if that's something you're interested in, go to scenariodesignsecrets.com, and you'll be able to watch that video and hook up with me there. So if you have any other questions, I am doing another live tomorrow. That one is a Whiteboard Wednesday. And the Whiteboard Wednesday is more intense. I actually go over the process. I actually get into the details of scenario frameworks and how to use the information from subject matter experts to actually have them help you populate those frameworks with really valuable information for your learner so that you can create something that actually means something to them. But so that'll be up tomorrow. But if you want to talk before that, I only have a few spots during the day to actually be able to do these live sessions from the strategy ones. So book your session as much in advance as possible, because that just helps me be able to plan because there aren't that many available. All right, so I'll talk to you next time. Have a great day, friend. Take care. Bye.